I was writing the post this week about data readiness and 10 questions, things you can do to evaluate your data, whether you're looking at your client or your own company, and really kind of answering yourself, are we ready to use this data? And I was thinking about a story. I've told it multiple times, but new here, which is someone once asked me once, I think I was at a conference that asked me, you say if you've been doing this for years, and you have worked with lots of different companies, small, medium, big, uh, some of the biggest companies in the world, global enterprise companies, all the way down to mom and pop shops. I used to work with local restaurants back in the day. And they asked me, hey, based on what you're seeing right now, what are some cool things that people are doing? And at the time, my answer, I have done cool things since then, but my answer at the time was, I'm kind of the wrong guy to ask. I worked for an agency, and people came to us when they had problems, and so I said I'm more like an ER doctor. I see gunshot wounds and broken legs, right? I don't see a lot of the what people are doing well, and I think that was a problem because I think at the time there was a lot of focus on data collection, having good data collection, and a lot of times we might get hired for that, and then we come back and we say, hey, now that we fixed the data, how about we do this? How about we do some sort of experimentation or do some audience work, attribution? And a lot of times people would just, they either would not have the money or would not have the inclination. Uh, and then separately, I would be talking with other clients where we would be doing work for them, and we had what they had wasn't necessarily bad. Um, and so we'd start talking about, hey, what would be really valuable for you would be to do some sort of attribution project like cookieless MTA, or to let's do some audience work so we can improve your targeting, or let's do some experimentation so we can see what's working or not, or whatever. And I remember the one time we were talking about AI and automation stuff, and the client was just they were like, "This sounds really cool. We are just not ready for it." And so we've been in these situations a lot of times, and you got to ask a lot of good questions. You got to say, like, what does it actually mean? And I think a lot of people, when they use terms like data readiness or data foundations, it can a lot of times those terms are very enterprise level exercises, and for a lot of mid market and smaller companies, even smaller enterprise, these are really pretty broad efforts in order to improve your data quality and be able to use this data. And so, I thought through what are the kind of things that I would ask of a client when we were working through some of these data readiness projects to try and figure out, okay, you're not ready. How do you get ready? And kind of thinking back to the ER doctor kind of mentality. This is sort of more data wellness, right? Like this is not necessarily you're broken, you don't have a broken leg as far as data. It's just what are you doing to holistically take care of yourself and your data, right? And a lot of times I kind of think of this in the mind, body, spirit kind of angle, whereas the body is like the tactical, the technical, the systems you're using, the implementation you're doing, versus the mind, which is more the strategy. Why are you doing this? What are you doing? What should you do? And the spirit being more things like, should we be doing this? Should we be collecting this data, like a PII, or consent and privacy and things like that? And so, having good data wellness, a good data readiness, it involves making sure that you are set up truly across the board in all these areas. And so the questions that I was thinking of to put this kind of together, it's how many, I mean, you can ask more, right? But, kind of working through them, it's just like, do you know what you want to do? What are you doing with this data, right? What do you want to do? What are the business questions you want to ask, right? What are the problems you want to solve? What do you want to make better? What are you trying to do? And then past that, like, like who's who's accountable for this? Because I think, like, well, moving back to the first one, for what do you want to do? If you don't know what you're going to do, yeah, I mean, there's people that let's collect everything, right? And I don't want to say that's wrong. It's not necessarily, but like, if you're collecting everything, you still need to do something with it, right? So you still should be asking yourself, what is it that I want to do with this data, right? What are we trying to do here? And so the kind of questions and the stuff I put together here is more like, let's get deeper into that, right? So that's one question, right? Another one, again, next one is anyone accountable for this? Because again, data is anthropic. I've said that for years, where it's like data, a developer launches a new page and something breaks, or they they did something and you're using an old tag manager container that's now on the site that is broken. I've seen sites that went from perfect data to absolute garbage, a quarter of their stuff not being tracked at all, overnight, instantly, when a developer pushes something. So, if you're not paying attention, if you're not watching it, if you don't have good hygiene, you're not saying who's responsible for looking at this to make sure that we're good, it can slip. And it doesn't have to be that dramatic. It can be a little bit over time. And really, a little bit over time is how it's going to happen. So you need to have people who own it, who are stewarding it, who are making sure that your data continues to be good. So that's definitely another one. Next question being, do we have a good taxonomy, right? Are we using... Are we consistently naming things? And consistently naming things is incredibly important, especially for data, because if you name things, one thing versus the other, the AI that you're using to look at it, or the system that your regular expression that you're looking for something, doesn't necessarily know that, this and this are the same thing. And you want it to be human readable. There's a lot of things there. So, do you have a consistent taxonomy naming system that you are using? And then next question would be, are we getting at the right level of detail, right? So like the thing I think about here, I don't know if it's the right example, but one of the things I think about is scrolling, right? If you want to look at engagement, we're looking at user level engagement at certain points. Say for watching a YouTube video, you want to know how far they watched into that video. Other things, it doesn't matter, right? You're looking at the aggregated level of data for a campaign, or you're looking at aggregated on a page. And so, what is the level of decision making that you actually are going to be acting on, and understanding what your granularity is. Another question revolves around really just documentation, right? So, do you have good documentation for your data? Do you have something where whenever there's a problem, you got to go ask Steve what's going on with your data? And if you're doing that, that's a dangerous situation. So you do want to have, because again, like if Steve leaves the company, why did we do this? I mean, how many times I've been in a situation where it's like, why are you tracking this? And no one has any idea. That's problematic, because then what can happen, also, you go back to the previous questions, is you might remove something, and then, Steve's still here, but you never talked to him, and that was important to him, and now his data is broken. So you really need to have good documentation about how your naming conventions are, what you're doing, what you're collecting, why you're collecting it, what it's being used for, and have that in documentation, and simple to complex, so that when people come in, you can make sure that people learn what you're doing. Privacy and compliance. Next question. Do you collect personal data? Do you know you're collecting personal data? How do you make sure you're not breaking consent laws and maintaining privacy? What are you doing for this? Definitely in that sort of spirit area of the mind, body, spirit aspect of wellness of your data. And then shared IDs, your unified sources of data. What are your unifying IDs? What are your shared IDs? What are your primary keys? Having good... If you're going to have some sort of ID system, you want to have that recorded and have a universal. If you have a universal key, what is it? And prioritize what you need to prioritize there. How often do you look at your data health, right? It kind of relates to the ownership question. How often are you actually doing an audit? Do you do an annual audit of all your data collection and your APIs and your pipelines? And what do you have as far as alerting systems? What are you doing to, how are you integrating these things? Are they connected, right? So understanding your your data health, implementing alerts, having good data reviews that you have scheduled keeps you honest. It keeps you make sure you continue to collect that good data. Another one is it's listed as action loops, but can your insights actually make an impact within a week, right? Another problem that we always see, like if people say we're not ready, is hey, if we find you an insight, how quickly can you act on it, right? If we find you something that could make your company more money, save you money, what does that look like to get that affected? We've worked with people before where that answer to that is like 3 to 6 months, right? We find an opportunity, you need to do something, and it's going to be 3 to 6 months before their internal developers can modify the website or update the app or whatever it is, or just have the political. They it could be political. It might not even just be a tactical or technical thing. It could be just we have to go through a review process. So how quickly can you do that? How do we work on that review process, and how do we help you there be able to affect change faster? Do our data teams and our decision makers actually talk? The human in the loop, right? Do you have your IT team taking care of your data and your executive team asking questions and they don't talk at all, right? Do you have people who are presenting dashboards that nobody uses because they present them these reports and dashboards that too much, or they never change, or it's just numbers and there's no story and no one knows what they're doing? So if you're in charge of the data and you're trying to make change, this also can help with that to get that human in the loop, and get that going. So I think again, like all these things are some basic questions, and there's so much more. But I think it's looking through how do we evaluate your data wellness, your data readiness, your data foundation, whatever you want to call it, and going from there. Hopefully you can, instead of going to a data hospital with a data broken leg, you can be going into the data spa for some data wellness. That's a lot of finger quotes. So anyway, hope you enjoy the article. Any other questions, post comments on the article on there. Contact me. Love to talk.